And we are live. Hello and welcome to Bolshevik Bistro 2.0. We are back on the fucking
Are you sure we're
oh,
live?
I
Because I'm on
screwed
the
up.
I'm on the streams page and it's just let me refresh it, see if it is.
Be live. It should be live. It says that I am live. I'd like to
Oh
say,
yeah, there's a bit of a delay. I'll
yeah,
just exit out of this.
obviously.
Because that's gonna throw me off.
Okay, so I've just forgot to mute the live stream, but I was following the chat. Okay, I was confused for a second. Okay, once again, hello and welcome everybody to Bolshevik Bistro 2.0. We are back on the usual streaming
Top 10
schedule.
anime returns of all time.
Indeed, we used to stream this thing every Wednesday, where it is me and some other dude, and we're like talking about different stuff about leftist theory, about like usually get deep into some sort of topic. But this time we're moving the stream on. It will be weekly. I hope it will be weekly, and it will be every Thursday now. To sort of span out the content, so you
I think
can
the last
catch.
Bolshevik Bistro was with Batco, right? If I'm correct.
I don't think so. I think the last one was with Welcome to Late Capitalism, Pedro from ex Crossroads co-owner,
I don't
and
think
we
I saw
talked
that one.
about. It was really cool because we were talking about Allende, we were talking about Chile during Pinochet's regime, and like what's up with it
Oh,
today.
was that the Red Chilean?
Yeah, no, not Red Chilean. We referred to Red Chilean, but it wasn't him. Pedro is a cool postmodernist intersectional leftist. He's pretty dope, and you can check it out. But you can check it out on YouTube and SoundCloud and iTunes, whatever you want. All the links are in the description. I recommend checking out that thing if you want to check out anything. Like, it was pretty cool discussion. So, before we go, I'd like to say you can check us out on eastmarshlands.com and consider donating on Patreon, because that will be really helpful
Quit
to
asking for free
grow.
handouts, you fucking socialists. Get a job. God damn it.
Indeed, I'm very
Fucking
sorry, but
moocher.
my socialistic nature, just demands to ask for handouts. And there are some other leftists who are also demanding handouts, who are giving each other handouts. That's some fucking real anarchism up in this place. I'd like to give a shout out to Ali Alvazan, a bowl of creamy tomato soup, Comrade Gultsov, and Zakhariel Petrovsky for donating. Thank you very much. We have different tiers, some different prices. We
Fuck
will
me, this
start.
coffee tastes like ass.
Oh God! Tell the people, where did you get this coffee?
Yeah, before I came on here, I went to Dunkin' Donuts and I got a coffee, and Dunkin' Donuts coffee tastes like shit.
Oh, I have my
Totally
coffee
unrelated, but
Polish
just, yeah.
style. I'm also having a coffee from my giant Las Vegas coffee mug, which was brought to me from Las Vegas. And I remember I was drinking from this particular coffee mug on the live stream where we talked about Las Vegas shooting. And I didn't realize it until like half of the fucking episode. I was like, oh shit, what up?
I don't know if you were trying to get a sponsor from Dunkin' Donuts, but I don't think you're going to get it now, Eugene. Sorry.
I don't think we're even considering sponsorships, because like actually some people that are some small YouTubers, they can get like sponsorships, but I thought that, dude, making sponsored content for capitalists while you are making leftist propaganda is not the best business model and not the
Bad
most
practice,
honest
bro.
business model. Yeah, it's bad practice. And so this is why we have Patreon, and thank you everybody for helping us out. Okay, today Barbie is here to discuss with us a very important political ideology, even I would rather say
Well,
a
a
school of
series of
thought.
ideologies.
Yeah, a school of thought, I would rather say, called the third position. So it is one of those weird, sorts of things in the political spectrum where it claims to be beyond left and right. And to
Well, I'd like
us,
I'd like
yeah,
to talk about third positionism, but I'd also like to talk. I know you already did an episode on fascism, but I'd also like to talk a bit about fascism and probably just like authoritarianism in general.
no,
Fucking
sure.
like I'm an anarchist, but I will admit like I fucking hate the word authoritarian and anti-authoritarian. It's just one of those words that just sounds like so fucking cringy, no matter who says it or how you says it.
Yeah, it's similar to individualist or
Yeah,
collectivist.
exactly. I fucking hate that word. You know, it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It's like every like political group has like their like favorite slur. With like right
Hmm.
wingers, it's cultural Marxist, and degenerates with tankies, it's like imperialist, and with anarchist, it's authoritarian. Like everybody
Yeah,
has their thing.
basically. And so, like, we will discuss those things, and I'd like to say that, like, third possessionism to the uninitiated sounds like most logical thing. It's like, when you're in the center of a political, when you're like not really a radical, when you hear, oh, it takes the best things from the left and the right, you're like, oh, that sounds fun. But then you like look at the track record of who the third positionists are and who claim to be beyond left and right, and you like quickly realize there's something up with that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
it's
can you
weird.
like,
It's like, you
yeah,
know, we need a healthy mixture of like socialism and capitalism, and then like the very next sentence is, let me tell you why Ceausescu did nothing wrong. Like those are the people that these are like that's basically what third
yeah.
positionists are in a nutshell.
Can you tell us what is third position?
Well, do you want to
Where did
talk
it
about
come
that, or do you
from?
want to do like talk about like the news first? Because I'm pretty sure like we did the news on Bolshevik Bistro.
If there is something important that like is important to the topic, we usually do news. But like on Bolshevik Bistro, we usually don't do the news themselves, but we get into the topic ASAP.
Um, The
Because
might be
the
related.
first time,
Today is the
yeah,
28th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall in
yeah,
1989, 89 or
89, yeah, 89
89.
it was an 89, yeah. So yeah, it meant the end of the German Democratic Republic and the unification of Germany, which is like, um, on one side, this is sad because like basically East Germany was one of the most successful economically, Marxist-Leninist state. It was one of those states that actually succeeded to have some sort of stable economy, and at the same time, obviously, it was rather repressive. It had a bunch of things concerned, like with Stasi and suppression of the political opposition. But like,
I don't really know a lot about the GDR. Um,
mhm,
like all I really know is, Berlin Wall, basically.
yeah. Well, I can say some interesting stuff about
I
the.
don't really know enough about the GDR to have like a definite opinion on it, basically.
They were really interesting because like they managed to produce a lot of commodities to the people, like basically on the like
I do
accounts of
know
the
that a lot
people.
of like former East Germans liked it
Yeah,
more than the current system.
yeah, because like basically it's really similar to every like socialist state after capitalism came in. Like basically there were so many workers protesting, not ideologues or like brainwashed fucking youth. I'm talking like workers who were trying to protect all those fucking privileges they used to have in Soviet Union and like during the socialist era in Eastern Europe. Like a lot of them were protesting and demanding that the old system would be retained, reformed but retained, because we see what the fuck has happened after it all fell apart. Like I even talked to my family members who are not huge fans of Soviet Union, and they also realized that being a worker in the 80s, and being a worker today are two completely different fucking worlds. Like, obviously, we know of the problems that those states had. We know that it wasn't working out at all. And we know of the shortages, political repressions, all of that stuff. but at the same time, we should realize that like that system was really helpful to the workers because it was organized for the workers. And German Democratic Republic is a grand example of that. Like, I believe that, like, for example, if you were a citizen of Soviet Union, you couldn't just go and travel to other countries, even in Warsaw Pact countries. You should have like some sort of reason to do that. You should have a permit. We have this sort of today, but there
Really?
was
I was told
yeah.
that I was told that traveling to other Warsaw Pact countries was relatively easy, kind of like the EU today, but traveling outside of the Warsaw Pact was difficult.
Well,
That's what I was.
it really depends because still it's similar to how it is today, where you should get some sort of how do I say, like a permit to leave the country, which is it's basically the same thing. But again, you just don't have like how do I explain it? Basically, it is easier. If you want to get beyond that, it's really fucking hard. But basically, usually people went to, like, for example, Berlin, East Germany, when they had some work appointments or they were serving there in the army and whatnot.
Yeah, there was like because East and West Berlin pretty economically dependent on each other. Like a lot of people
Yeah,
lived in the East but worked in the West, and that's why they.
yeah, yeah. And basically, when people came from Soviet Union to German Democratic Republic, they were fucking shocked by the amount of shit that was on the market, the amount of shit in the shops, and the quality of that stuff. It was
When East
amazing
Germans went to
quality.
West Germany.
No. When Soviet Union citizens went to East Germany,
Oh, okay.
they were like, oh my fucking god, that's amazing. Like they saw a lot of stuff. And I remember, like, there are even some in Russia. There are a lot of works written about that, like analyzing the economic situation and why is it so. But basically, East Germany managed to provide really good quality living to to its citizens. Like, despite all the the bureaucracy, all the giant political apparatus that is really fat and unmovable, and all the shortcomings of planning, and the fact that they were really dependent politically on the decisions in the Moscow, all of that stuff. But they managed to have an amazing quality of life there, and like good, really good economic growth. And so this is why when capitalism went in like in '89, this is when people, like, basically all of the factories, all of the job places that were basically maintained in DDR because there was no profit motivation. There was the needs motivation. They were part of the planned economy systems. Now they were either in neglect by the government or privatized. All of those things went out of business like that, and people became unemployed. So, like, for East Germany, this like the end of the Berlin Wall meant a lot of economic stagnation and not very positive
Yeah,
stuff.
like the former GDR is kind of a wasteland from what I've read. It's kind of like the Rust Belt here almost. It's like a lot
Yeah,
of sort of
it's really
abandoned
similar to the Rust
infrastructure.
Belt. Yeah, it's really similar to that. And if you look like at different maps of like economic
Actually, that's a pretty
development,
common theme
income,
throughout the former Warsaw Pact, actually, in a lot of those countries, Poland, Ukraine. There's just like a
and
lot of
Belarus,
abandoned
same.
factories.
Yeah, and it's really hard to overcome this, the swap of capitalism. It's really hard to overcome it. Like, and to get us back into the topic, a lot of countries in Eastern Europe, they try to claim this sort of third position while not really like being third positionist. It's like, for example, our government. It claims to be um, a capitalist republic, right? That is still a quote from the Constitution, a social republic. They
Right.
claim to be sort of for the people while still being for profit. you know? And so this sort of, attempt to catch these, the privileges of the workers in Soviet Union era, and attempt to claim on like things like healthcare, uh, things like unions and all of that stuff. It's all really is really interesting how like people want that, but the capitalist system cannot give it to them, and so this is why we have free healthcare, but it's shit, and we have unions, but they don't do nothing. They don't protect the rights of the workers, and sort of we hang in between. But tell us, what is third position? What is its aim? Like, what does it come from?
Well, I'm not really sure that's the best way to put it because that kind of implies that third positionism is kind of like a monolithic thing.
Hmm.
Third positionism, the term, is just kind of a blanket term to refer to a handful of ideologies that um, can't really be uh, can't really be what's the word? Can't really be qualified as right wing or left wing in the traditional sense.
Uh-huh.
Um, Usually, they're very nationalistic to varying degrees,
Hmm.
and at least nominally claim to be somewhat left-leaning economically, although that part quite varies in that quite varies ostensibly as well as in practice, which I'll get into. Examples of third positionist ideologies would be like Baathism in Arab countries, uh, the North Korean thing, I forget what it's called.
Juche.
Juche, yes, thank you. Strasserism in Germany, and in Eastern Europe, the Nazbols. These are all sort of like third positionist.
Yeah.
Pardon. Those are all third positionist ideologies.
And you know what's interesting? Like, and they it's so really hard to define a lot of them even as third positionists. Like, let's take for example something close to your home, American Third Position Party, that is now called American Freedom Party, right? They
Right.
claim to be third positionist, something beyond like the left and right, but basically those guys are really like white nationalist, right wing populist, that
Right.
demand a very heavy control of the state, of white state, over everything, every aspect of politics, of
Well, that's why I said
social
that.
life, and everything. Yeah.
That's why I used the word ostensibly when I did the little
Hmm.
introduction, because if you really kind of look at the nitty gritty of it, a lot of it does seem like practically there isn't really that much of a difference between. It's like regular centrist, really. It's
Hmm.
like there's really not that much of a difference between just your garden variety far right. It seems like when you look at a lot of the third positionist ideologies.
Right. And my question to you is then, like, we see that it is really, really like those sort of ideologies, like they appear usually at the same time where other like radical parties and radical movements start to erupt. Like, for example, socialism and fascism. They sort of start to appear during the economic crises and times of the hardest times for the country, and
Well,
we see that.
third position ideologies are a
Yeah.
curious case. I think it's kind of hard to have like a really scientific
Mhm.
analysis of them because historically they haven't really been a lot of them. It's mostly
Mhm.
just been kind of theoretical thing. By and large, it doesn't really have much of a history in terms of like actually being applied.
Yeah, but what about like Syrian Baathism? Because it's been there for
Mm,
quite some time.
Baathism Baathism really just kind of started off as like a national liberation movement with some socialist characteristics, but like after there were like some internal internal coups, power hungry people, and they just kind of like made it up to suit their sort of Bothism as an ideology did exist, but they just kind of like basically remade the ideology to sort of fit the agendas of the people behind these coups.
Yeah,
Um,
I see it.
like the sort of revisions they made really emphasized like nationalism over like basically just discarded any like pretense of socialism or
Yeah,
any type of proletarian aspect of Bothism. And modern Bothism is basically just entirely bourgeois. I don't
yeah.
really care what anybody says. It just is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
But
think same. Like when there are all of those discussions about the Syrian conflict, and I like look at Assad and Baathism, and I'm like, wait, are you sure this is the thing that we should like outright support, even against the Kurds? Like, I would get it if it was just America, you know. Like,
right.
I wouldn't even hesitant to support them, you know. But like I remember we had this discussion with I had this discussion with Red Star over on their channel, and we were like talking, and they basically said that, oh yeah, we support Kurds, but like every time Assad is fighting America, we support Assad. Every time Kurds are fighting, if like we support Assad over America and ISIS,
well,
and we support
I don't
Kurds
want to
over.
I don't want to get off on a tangent about this, so I'll just uh, say my piece about that really quickly, and then we'll get back
Sure.
to third positionism. Like, there's a difference between opposing U.S. interference in other countries and like supporting the ruling people of the country they're
Hmm.
interfering in. It's like not they're 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 not necessarily one and the same, and I don't understand why a lot of people can't seem to wrap that around their heads. But anyway,
Yeah,
going
like
back to third
yeah,
positionism.
sure. Hmm.
Yeah, Bothism became third positionist kind of after the fact, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I don't really know enough about the history of Juche to really sort of say how that came into being, how
Well,
that
yeah.
ideology sort of formed.
I can say that it's pretty similar, but to how Baathism became sort of third positionist, but it sort of started with like basically the what's the first leader of North Korea? What's his name?
Kim
Kim
Il
Il
Sung.
Sung. Kim Il Sung. Yeah, Kim Il Sung was basically studying to become the socialist leader of Korea and Soviet Union. And Soviet Union saw, like, basically, this is one of my critiques of Soviet Union and their support of the popular struggles. They, in many ways, they used the popular, like, they used international worker struggle to further the geopolitical needs of the country. And so the Korean Revolution was mostly
Like
done.
imperialism gets rebranded as internationalism, basically.
Yeah, it was the hijacking of this movement to further the interest of Soviet Union. And the Korean Revolution is a grand example of that. Basically, they even like basically Kim Il Sung was educated by Soviet officials to do the revolution. And I think he wasn't even born in Korea, if I recall correctly.
I think
Maybe
he
I'm
was born in
mistaken.
Russia.
He was born in Russia, yeah. And so basically, then they send him over and they give him like funds and they give him all the things that he can do the revolution. It was successful. And basically, just take, for example, Stalin Marxist Leninist way to structure the society, right? And then give this sort of state a fucking Korean War, you know, where everything is fucking devastated, right? And because as a reaction to this devastating war and economic suppression, and like America went really fucking hard on Korea, and people keep forgetting that. And basically, this all resulted sort of, in a in this weird Juche ideology. And like, have you ever read anything like any of the literature, the Juche literature?
I've read like a few assorted like public statements that like North
Hmm.
Korean officials have like given like speeches and shit, but nothing that really could be considered like Juche like theory. And the
Hmm.
stuff that I've read is kind of the dates were kind of far apart. And from what I understand, like Juche is a relatively recent thing because for a while North Korea just claimed they were, correct me if I'm wrong, uh, and anybody who's listening in the comments, feel free to correct me if
Hmm.
I'm if I don't under if I'm have misconceptions. But I think North Korea just claimed they were regular Marxist-Leninists pretty much up until the end of the Cold War. So from what I
Yeah.
understand, Juche
Uh-huh.
is a relatively recent phenomenon.
But like, yeah, like I don't know what they claim to be on, to be honest. But like, for all like, if you actually look at what they're writing about Juche, you see that it is vague enough to mean anything. It's
Yeah,
like
Juche,
they're,
from what,
yeah,
from what I've read about Juche is very idealist in
very.
like the Marxist sense. It's very, um, I'm trying to, it's like this very weird sort of, oh, all the people united. It uses like very vague, spooky, kind of like
Yeah,
flowery
flowery
language.
language. Yeah, I've seen this. I've read. It's really, really like that. It's like, it's, oh,
It's
the
very hard to
working
describe, but
people.
if you've read bits of like Juche, you'll know
Hmm.
exactly what I'm talking about. But it is very
Yeah,
difficult to describe to people who haven't read it, to anyone in the
like a
to
good
the people watching.
example is like how they describe the way working class should structure the society. It's like they're writing something similar to the like, uh working class using the creative forces
Yes,
restructure,
exactly.
like, and what are you implying? Like, what does it mean? It's like it could mean anything. It literally could mean
Yes,
anything.
that is 100% accurate. Yeah, it is very much very idealist, very not very very
Dialectical.
very not
Not very
dialectical. Yeah.
dialectical, yeah. I can see it. And like in many ways, like I think like this sort of, contradictions between like like claiming to be anti-capitalist, in many ways, and this claim to be anti-capitalist and the reality that we're actually looking in, it's like it's really similar to Falangism, like in Spain. Spanish Falangism is basically
I think
fascist
it's pronounced
syndicalism.
phalangism.
Phalangism, I'm sorry, yeah. It's Phalangism. Like, you read what their ideal, like before, even before Franco took over the movement, when it was rather like independent of him, it's basically those guys are talking about class cooperation, right? But they are also talking about syndicalism as the main mode of production for their ideal Spain. And you're like, okay, so I'm friends with the boss, and we are the same. We are like a body. The society is a body, but we have no capitalism because we are really anti-capitalist as phalangists. But the private property is retained, and we have syndicalism. What? And it's like it's so contradictory in my opinion. Like,
Well, that's
isn't it?
funny to me because that's very much that sounds very much to me like a bastardization of like official fascist theory.
Hmm.
Because the hallmark to me with fascism as a and proper fascism, not like third positionism, the hallmark to me with um fascism as a theory, proper fascism as a theory, not just everything I don't like is fascism that liberals do, but like actual fascist theory is like overtly celebrating class collaboration.
Yeah.
And it's this idea, it's a reversal of leftist theory, basically. With fascism, it's classes collaborating in service in service of the Volk or whatever, which in reality is just collaboration in service of the state.
Yeah, it's like an attempt to solve the class antagonisms by introducing class collaboration.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Of course, in reality, fascist regimes are very much, it's pretty obviously skewed in favor of the upper classes, but
yeah,
on
mostly because
paper they
like it's
claim to.
subjugation. It's subjugation of the working class in reality, like destruction of the unions, destruction of the radical left and the left in general. Like
Yeah, it's
everything. Yeah,
you read the old like social fascist meme, but if you like read some of their manifestos, it almost sounds like something that like social democrats would say.
yeah, in many ways. But it's like the difference being they are really quote unquote anti-capitalist, whatever that means. Because usually when you hear anti-capitalist from a guy who claims to be a socialist, right? Uh, you what he means is private property, mode of production with the private property, like blah blah blah, markets, money, those things, wage labor and those stuff. When a fascist or a third positionist is talking about capitalism, what they mean is big corporations, right? And they mean international trade, and they mean those things.
When
Because
they talk about capitalism, they're talking about like globalization or what we would call neoliberalism, but they're not really opposed to capitalism, i.e., the system of wage labor, private property, and commodification.
yeah, and it's like this is what I hear, for example, when I read Nazbol literature, Russian Nazbols, and I listen to speeches and like stuff that Limonov, the leader of Russian Nazbol Party, I think they renamed themselves into something like Russia something. I forgot the name of the new party, but they are Nazbols, and what
Fuck
they are
this coffee,
writing.
dude. This coffee is shit.
My coffee is amazing. Let me
Fuck
just
you and your
quickly
coffee.
make a point about Nazbols, and then I'll say something about my coffee. Basically, um, the when you read and you like look through the plan that they're proposing, it's literally like, yay, capitalism sucks. Stalin was the best. So what we should do is not really do socialism, but what we want to do is we want to completely annihilate the fucking big business. We want to create a system in which our people will be looked after, and we will institute high fucking taxes on property holders, but won't seize the means and won't put them in the hands of the workers, but rather nationalize a lot of shit. And this is what they are like usually talking about. It's like it's really radical, but it's not really like left wing. And it's really when you're looking at it from an ideological standpoint, if you subscribe to some sort of ideology, and you look at those guys, they look really fucking spooked. Like, what's your opinion on that? Why is it so weird? Why is it so funny and weird? Because I think this is the why Nazbols are a giant fucking meme on the leftist internet, in my opinion. Is because of this weirdness of their ideology.
They're a meme because like Nazbol movements are like so politically illiterate. Like it's just they just like the symbolism and iconography, basically. They have like basically no idea about how fascism or communism, what those ideologies are actually about. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just a synthesis of like traditional white nationalism and like Soviet LARPing because Soviet culture is such a big influence on like the Russian national identity and just sort of
Yeah.
like Slavic countries in general. So that's literally all Nazbol is from what I've seen.
Okay. By the way, if people don't know, I'm having a sort of collaboration with my friend in Belarus who's a writer and a journalist, and he has been associated with the Belarusian Nazbol party, and we are making a movie, a sort of like documentary about Nazbol movement, and I will try to meet with some Nazbols that still exist today in Belarus, and that are like still doing fighting a good fight, and to sort of understand what those people are like, what those people are thinking about, what those people are, what they claim to be, because it's sort of weird. You have people with like Nazi tattoos who are talking about how Lenin and Stalin were amazing, and you're like, wait a second, what? And it's like, how can you both claim that both Hitler, Stalin, and Lenin were the like ideal people for you, if you aren't like just some crazy, frustrated, angsty teen,
Right, right.
And isn't it the just third positionism? It's like peak reactionism, where you literally want to do as like
Well, it's
you want
just
to.
like reactionary politics, but like some superficial leftist elements, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
And
what it seems like to me. I've been
yeah,
spent the last couple of days just sort of reading up on the history of like third positionist movements, and that's really all I can say about them. It's just LARPing.
do you think they can play a bigger role in politics of Europe, America, or other third world
No,
countries?
I don't think they will. If it does become a thing, I think I kind of have the same feeling. If third positionism becomes a thing, I'm willing to bet money that what's going to happen to third positionism is the same thing that I tell people is going to happen with anarcho-capitalism. It's going to just phase out because eventually people are going to realize that there isn't basically any difference between it and just actual fascism, so they'll just become fascist, basically. Either that or they'll
Uh-huh.
just become regular communist. Because like with ANCAPs, it's either since it claims to be anarchist, they get exposed to real anarchism through that and they become real anarchists sometimes, or they just become a fascist because my private property. And there aren't really that many differences between fascism and anarcho-capitalism anyway. And it's the same thing with Nazbols. They're either just going to become regular Nazis or they'll just become communist, basically. Probably most of them will
Yeah.
become Nazis.
Yeah, I agree. But like, basically, what's your opinion? What is the best, like, when do you see a pattern in why those movements appear and how they get traction? Is there some sort of pattern to them appearing out of nowhere?
Well, I think it's kind of goes back to what I said about Bothism earlier. They seem to be kind of improvised movements. It seems like they exist more because some leader needs a philosophy to back him up more than they're sort of coming from below. I think
Uh-huh.
Nicolae Ceausescu in Romania is probably the best example of this. After he kind of alienated himself from the rest of the Warsaw Pact, he like created this bizarre, weird synthesis of Marxist Leninism with extreme Romanian nationalism.
Yeah.
And he was the weirdest fucking dude. Like, Nicolae Ceausescu is a bizarre figure. He's extremely hated. You know how bad Ceausescu was? He's the only people in Romania who like Ceausescu today are like Nazis,
Yeah.
basically.
I think I talked to
Like the people who
someone from there
these
who's
guys are
mentioned
fans
that.
of the Iron Guard, and the Iron Guard were so bad that the Nazis thought they were too extreme. And like the people who are fans of those guys like Ceausescu. That's how insane Ceausescu was.
Amazing. This
And
is
yeah,
amazing.
like Ceausescu is basically the closest we've ever come to like a Nazbol government. I think he's saying that was Ceausescu the national communism guy. Doesn't the national communism thing come from?
No,
Uh,
national communism is a bit different, by the way. I've researched that. National communism doesn't mean what it means today. National communism was actually born in Ukraine, of all places. And what's the history of like Belarus and Ukraine and Russia? Russia claims that we are sister nations, right?
right,
But
right.
but we like, especially like Ukraine, doesn't think so. It's like, maybe you are my brother, but stay the fuck away, dude. And when there was Russian Revolution, um, basically those there was an all Ukrainian Soviet. Basically, they all gathered together and they're like, "Yo, what up, pimps? Let's do socialism now. Oh yeah, Bolsheviks are doing something. That's great. You know what? Let's just, just build our own socialist state without Russia. Because like, why would we? Like, fuck Russia. Let's do our own communism. We'll call it national communism. And the only difference between like Marxism in Russia and national communism was let's do a Marxist state that is separate and it is based on national identity. So
Right,
we
right.
will separate the national borders, and Ukrainians will have their own um, uh, national identity, their own not basically an ethno state that will be socialist. And this is sort of the idea behind it. And like, you remember that Lenin was really like torn by this whole thing. Like, should we allow national autonomy? Should we
Yeah,
allow
that was like
nations
that
to
was
just
like
like,
one of the big questions of like the early 20th century
yeah.
socialist movement.
And Ukraine was like, you know what? Fuck it, we're doing our own thing. Unfortunately or fortunately, Ukrainians got like national communists got beaten, and some of them went away. Some of them joined the Bolshevik Party, but basically, very soon the whole movement died out. And
What about
so,
Makhno?
Makhno wasn't really a national communist. He was
Well,
doing
yeah, I
his
know
own
that,
thing.
but was there like
Yeah.
were they like any sort of like overlap with ideals between those movements or
To be honest, I don't know. But from what I know of the legacy of national communists, is some of those people gave birth to what we today call Nazbol. Like, unfortunately, Nazbol today became a third positionist thing. It's a third position ideology, but its legacy lie deeply in socialism and Russian Revolution, and it's like, at least from historical standpoint, it's more than just um, fascism with Soviet LARPing, And speaking of fascism, you wanted to talk about authoritarianism, right? Um, what did you want to talk about specifically? Because like,
specifically, well, I didn't really when I said authoritarian it's still cringy to say, but when I said authoritarianism, I just kind of meant like basically what we've been
yeah.
talking about fascism, third positionism, and like you know maybe something like Marxist Leninist governments if we get around to it. That's just kind of general what I meant by it. I didn't
Hmm.
really have like anything specific in mind when I said that,
Okay.
but
But
um
yeah, I would like to ask you a question. Is it fair to say that third positionism is just, in many ways, just basically whitewashing of fascism?
um I th- I I don't think that's unfair to say.
Uh huh.
Um but I think it probably does kind of depend on the specific type of third positionism.
Yeah.
Um
And
like
also,
I
like, yeah, I understand. Like, it's really hard to say that, for example, Baathism is outright fascism, despite the fact it has all the fucking foundations to become fascist, right? Like, it can
right, right.
easily do like this and become fascist. And this is my opinion on North Korea. It's not fascist, in my opinion. It isn't. But it may as well. It could. It could like become fascist if like the private property owners in North Korea that live in Pyongyang will get enough traction, and the army will get enough traction, because like, it's really dangerous to give those two groups enough power. Like,
Well,
basically.
I think like one of the defining features of fascism really is you take really reactionary governments and really reactionary regimes,
Hmm.
reactionary policies, etc. But they have vaguely left-wing sounding rhetoric.
Uh-huh.
I think there's a pretty marketable difference between a proper fascist regime and, say, Batista in Cuba. Like, I think the latter is definitely just kind of like a gangster state, basically. Not
Yeah.
really much ideology. It's just purely, we want your money. Give us your money. Like, that's what. And, I think there's definitely a difference between that and, rhetorically, between that and somebody like Mussolini or a third
Yeah, because
positionist or
like
whatever.
I see that. Then like Batista was literally just a capitalist dictator who was like, yeah, I just want to earn as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time, and I will exploit the fuck out of everything. And well, fuck you, you know. I don't
Right.
care what you mean, and I don't care what you say. Fuck you. That's what I mean. But like, what about those people that have been frequently described on the left as fascist, like for example Pinochet? Would you describe Pinochet as fascist outright, or you would rather compare him to Batista and claim that he could be
Um,
fascist, but really isn't?
I don't know. He's a curious case. I think I would say he was a fascist, but well, I don't know. It's a
And
strange
is
case. He
there
definitely
actually a
had like a
difference?
fascist
Like,
aesthetic, but
yeah, militarist, a lot of military shit, uniforms and stuff like this. And he was basically, his whole regime was based on the military control, right?
yeah, I guess I would have to say that he was more like Batista because his thing was pretty much just like about the free market and the comprador bourgeoisie in Chile. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure how much if like the sort of traditional ideas of fascism of being like anti-globalist or whatever their spook is kind of applies to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know
So I
what? I just,
guess at the end of the
yeah,
day, I would have to say he had more in common with a Batista type figure.
I just thought, basically, in my opinion, the third positionist ideologies are really, really helpful to those types, to the Batista types and the Pinochet types, because um, third positionism is so like lucid and so like it can be shaped in whatever form you wish, and it is a go-to ideology if you want to have a really strong grip on the state and economics and have some sort of um, um, ideological background to it, right? Like a book to point to claim that, oh yes, this is what we base our politics on. Like if you want to expand and like legitimize your rule, basically. Um, have you Do you remember this guy in some Central Asian country? It was Turkmenistan that had this like green book, a giant
Green Book? That
book.
was Libya, I think. That was Gaddafi.
No, not Gaddafi, not the green. It wasn't called the Green Book. Um, Wait a second.
Well, I guess Gaddafi could be considered a third positionist.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know enough about him
Um,
to say, but I've heard him
Same. Like,
described
in
as
my
a
opinion,
third
it's really weird.
positionist.
All I can say is that he's one of those guys who's like easily picked on by imperialists. Whatever ideology
Oh,
they
your mic is
subscribe to.
fucked up. I don't know if anyone else can hear that, but your mic got really fucked up for a second there.
Hello.
Okay, that's a lot better.
Yeah, it should fix itself. Um, it was Super Murat Niyazov that had this fucking book thing. He was president for life in there.
Oh, the Turkmenistan guy?
I think so.
He had like the big, it was like a big statue. It looked like the Quran, but it was like just some bullshit he made up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I just saw a documentary about that actually, just the other day. It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, that guy's bizarre. And that's what I talked about when I said, these third positionist ideologies um, are invented by these leaders. These third positionist ideologies are just these dudes making
Yes.
shit up. It's like just them trying to justify things.
Yes, it's called the Book of the Soul, Ruhnama. I remember it. You know what's interesting about it? It's translated into Belarusian and sold in our stores
Why?
because we are good friends with them. We are good friends with Super. We used to be good friends with Supermaratny Yazov
Oh,
because
that's hilarious.
Belarus just fucking loves to like have to make friends with those
Yeah,
sort of
that guy kind of was
governments.
like the Central Asian Lukashenko, I guess.
Yeah, and when like there is like a revolution or something in those places, we are the go-to place to all of those fucks to come here and have their asylum safe
Oh,
away from
yeah,
like
I remember.
all of those
Yes, I
motherfuckers.
remember you telling me that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like I love it. This is why our country is the best. We are the go-to. We are not that bad, but we are really, not really totalitarian. We are more like authoritarian, and we don't like. I can literally have a leftist podcast and not be bothered most of the time with anything, like whatever. But it's a go-to place to all local fucking dictators to just go here and chill. Like if there will be a revolution in Russia, right? Putin will go here because Europe will arrest him. Everywhere in the world, everywhere else in the world is like too alien to him. Belarus will be the best place for him. The best. This is where Belarus is a country where dictators go to die, basically.
Basically, it's a retirement home for despots.
Yeah, this is literally Belarus. Uh, and it sounds amazing. Retirement home for despots. I will write it down.
It's just going to be like that's just going to be on like every postcard from Belarus now.
Yeah, it's
It's just going to be
amazing.
like a selfie of some tourist with like fucking some like former Congolese dictator or some
Yeah.
shit.
Just imagine you're going through Minsk, and it's like a video. Welcome to Minsk, the capital
Oh,
of
you're just
beautiful
like
country
walking around
Belarus.
Minsk seeing the sights, and then you get a selfie of Interpol's most wanted man.
Yeah, it is just imagine like a very black African, like a very black dude with like a military uniform, and you're pretty sure he's like some sort of African dictator, like who made a coup d'état and was a dictator for 2 months until like all of his like family was like he and his family just escaped on a plane to Belarus, and it's like him walking in this pure white uniform with medals, all over his fucking shirt, just buying himself a fucking potato pancake in a local shop.
Right.
Like this is Belarus, literally. And jokes aside, I have seen. I think who was this? I think it was Turkmenistan or Turkmenistani. No, it wasn't. Let me check because who had the fucking coup d'état? I don't remember. There was one fucking state in somewhere next to Kazakhstan, right? And they had a revolution there, and their president escaped to Belarus.
Was
And
it
at the time, it was
Kurdistan?
not Kurdistan, somewhere in Central Asia, somewhere next to Kazakhstan. And basically, what happened is that at the time I was living with my parents, and my parents live in the city center, and like I was like walking through the city center, going like right next to the um, president's palace where he works. It's like beautiful Stalinist architecture. Everything's fine. And there is this little cafe called News Cafe, and it's famous for being a posh fucking cafe where, like, for example, there is a UK embassy right across the street. There are all those, posh fucking places everywhere, and this is where those, diplomats go to dine. This is where rich people go in fancy cars, and it's like all in Bentleys and fuck, whatever. It's like a posh place.
Right.
And I'm walking by, and I usually there I see a lot of famous actors, Russian actors, like recognizable faces. And there I see this fucking dictator just sitting with someone having a cup of coffee. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? It's like we were joking about it, about how it's the retirement home for the despot. But I literally have seen this dude drinking a cup of coffee, just like chilling in Minsk while his country is being like saying that he will face fucking charges and he's like, we will put him in prison for life for all these crimes against his own people, I love it.
Casually getting a latte at Starbucks.
Yeah, I love it. Oh God, and you know what? It's all just in my opinion, all those crazy despots, all those crazy dictators, all those guys who are trying to extort as much value of the land as possible, all of them will face an eventual collapse, like sooner or later. Like we see today that even America is collapsing, because it's not because like they have made some mistakes in terms of how to deal with countries, or if you had just a couple of anti-corruption laws, you would be fine. No, it's because of capitalism is inherently flawed, and all the what we call authoritarian structures, they're inherently flawed. This what, if I recall correctly, was Foucault.
Well, that's
Michel
that's
wrote
ultimately
about that.
how fascism and third positionism ultimately get their
Yeah.
start, because it uses those traditionally leftist rhetoric, but at the heart of it, it's really pretty reactionary, as I've said. Like, there's been books written about this, about how like the Nazis did that. A curious case to me is that that's what the Iranians did in the Islamic Revolution in Iran that created the Shia theocracy in that country. It's like it uses a lot of like traditionally leftist sounding rhetoric. Like they claim that they're like anti-imperialists and stuff like that.
We are against exploitation. Our people should
Yes.
unite against the evil, power-hungry, rich people, whatnot. Yeah. In Iran, it was Shah, an American. He was American puppet. Get Americans out. So all of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's a classic case of reactionaries using leftist rhetoric and like leftist-esque themes.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's kind of what makes these sort of things dangerous. More so than like your basic bitch, just corrupt reactionaries like the Batistas.
Mm-hmm. Because it's sort of a hijacking of the leftist movements.
Yeah.
They hijack them, yeah. And this is what we should be like worried about, that this sort of rhetoric is similar to what we are talking about, and if you add up some reactionary, motives and reactionary speech that will appeal in an amazing way, very, very effectively to the working class,
Yeah,
and petit bourgeois.
I was listening to Matthew Heinbach's podcast the other day. And if you don't know, Matthew Heinbach is he's the nation is like a body dude.
Oh, really? You think he has a podcast?
Yes, he has a podcast. If you're familiar with my channel, you've heard of him. I did a response to like the Traditionalist Workers' Party's channel ad. It was fucking hilarious, and I laughed a lot in the video, and it has a lot of views.
It's a very funny video, and the dude is he's basically a Nazi.
Yeah,
that tries to laugh as a worker.
He's the leader of the Traditionalist Workers' Party, which is basically a Nazi party in America.
I think. By the way, I think it explains perfectly the name of it and the symbols. It's literally a fucking cog, right? And what's
like
it called?
Trident or some shit.
Not trident. What's it called? It's a peasantry thing. It's like, fuck, I forgot the name of it. It's like
a pitchfork.
Yeah, it's a pitchfork. Sure, it's basically the symbols, like the workers and peasantry. Literally that. So talk about fucking hijacking of the leftist.
Yeah, well, Traditionalist Workers' Party. I mean, right there.
Yeah. So yeah, what about his podcast? What did you see there?
Yeah, I was listening to one of his podcasts because because I feel like it's easier to defeat your enemy if you know about them. And he was talking about North Korea in this particular episode of his podcast. I'll send you the link and you can put it in the description of this video
Okay.
because I think people
I'll put it
really
in.
should listen to it. It's very interesting. He was talking about North Korea, and he basically just had this like glowing review of North Korea and like the system they had there because, and I don't know how accurate his claims are, but like, North Korea has a lot of emphasis on it's very mono-ethnic. There's not a lot of, refugees in North Korea. It's mostly
No,
just all
it's really
Koreans.
it's just Koreans. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an emphasis on protecting traditional Korean culture, very militaristic, lots of emphasis on the leader. And these are all things that he's praising North Korea before. Like this American Nazi dude is like saying all these good things about North Korea. And the podcast is about half an hour long, I think.
Oh, nice.
And
Very
like,
digestible.
yeah, it's very digestible. Yeah, all of you really should listen to it.
Are you shilling for traditionalist workers' party?
Yeah, I'm unironically a member of the Traditionalist Workers' Party now.
You're the left wing of the party. You're the Strasser to his Hitler.
But yeah, anyway, where was I?
So he said that he's praising it for basically all the stuff that we, as like more quote unquote
He's praising it for being an
anti-authoritarian
ethno-state,
people.
basically.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying North Korea was perfect. He said like a few criticisms here and there.
Like what? What didn't he like about it?
He didn't really say. He just kind of said like not everything North Korea does is perfect, and he just talks about like, oh, the country has like high poverty rates or whatever, but he didn't say like what specific policy that he doesn't agree with led to that.
Yeah.
He only touches on, he basically just brings it up just so people don't think he thinks North Korea is perfect.
It's good,
basically.
yeah.
But he was talking about, it's the most disturbing thing about that podcast is towards the end, he was talking about the arduous march in Korea in 90s after Soviet Union falls and North Korea loses like all its only international backers, and that causes a pretty horrible famine in North Korea. I think it killed like 10% of that country's population or something. And he's talking about that, and he says like he's like congratulating not congratulating, but he's praising the North Koreans for even going through something as horrible as that.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't let people of different ethnicities in.
Oh God.
So all these people are dying horrible deaths. They have like no food or anything, but they're not letting in brown people basically. So it's okay. Like
I love when the
like,
priorities, where his priorities are, you know?
Yeah, they're literally willing to like they would literally rather like the race die than have the race get mixed, basically. That's the logic that these people are coming from. And that was the most disturbing thing about that podcast.
Yeah.
Like it was really weird.
Fuck.
And he's like, and it was his tone too. He was very enthusiastic about it. He didn't have like a solemn tone or anything. Like he almost sounded glad.
Mm-hmm.
It was bizarre.
It is. It reminds me of how Jason and Rue on Press TV was talking about North Koreans' nuclear program, and how he was like, there was the host. I remember this. It's sort of related to this, you know, how bizarrely you can put priorities when talking about those things. Basically, Jason was talking about their nuclear capability, and the host sort of, you know, asked, "Oh, and how powerful is this weapon? It's like, how dangerous is it?" And basically the question was like, how dangerous is the weapon? And Jason said, "Oh, it's very dangerous. It's like, it's so dangerous. It can reach New York, and if it falls on Wall Street, this could basically mean the collapse of America as we know it." And like he starts to like basically have a wet dream, you know, of how America will fall apart. And like, of course, a lot of people will die. He says like as an afterthought. I'm not saying like I'm not against North Korea's nuclear program. I'm all for that. I want every single country to have nuclear weapons in this fucking day and age. like North Korea, especially in third world countries. Yeah, I'm for that. It doesn't change the nature of it doesn't change my opinion on Juche and other things. Like I'm pretty for nuclear weapons, but I love the way Jason puts this, how he presents it. Oh, I think the chat is offending us. There is a guy named Zone of A, who said, "Are those two are actually liberals LARPing as socialists?" Right? I think he's referring about us to us. And then he says, "Yup, you liberal imperialists pretending to be socialists. An hour of insults and attacks to every third world implementation of any vaguely leftist movements using classic liberal imperialist vocabulary." Yo, dude.
Vaguely leftist, keyword, buddy.
Vaguely leftist, exactly. It's like if a guy just claims to be Marxist-Leninists or anti-capitalists, I'm not going to jump ahead and say, yup, unconditional support. What? Of course I'm anti-imperialist. I'm for North Korea having nuclear weapons. Like, I'm for that. I'm not for their regime. Like, I'm not for the stuff they are actually doing. I don't want, socialism to be that dangerous to, I'm against reactionaries, right? But you should realize that you would be the next to be.
That Nazbols were third world implementers of socialism. That's news to me.
It's like, how will it lead to socialism? It's if the whole system is created to maintain the mode of production. Dude, are you aware that if, for example, Nazbols took over Russia as they want to, right? And they start doing the Nazbol thing, it wouldn't destroy private property. It wouldn't destroy the relationship between the authoritarian relationship capital has to the working class. Like, are you aware of this fact, dude? Yo, Zone of A, fuck off and reconsider, okay? And yes, Vinterick is saying he's gay. He's very gay. I support it. Unconditional support for Vinterick homosexuality. No questions asked. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Maybe you want to mention. Maybe we could talk about how leftists, some leftists, really support third positionism. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, really, I think you're just haven't really read enough about the things you claim to support, because I've literally been reading about third positionism and fascism for the past couple of days, and it's just kind of lame. I mean, there's not really much to it.
Yeah. Okay. Zonove asks, says, "Oh yes, you did express support for SDF. I guess any socialists could you support are those acting proxies of U.S. imperialism?" No. No, dude. I don't think that aligning yourself with an imperialist force tactically is bad. Remember Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact?
You guys know that that North Korea is basically only exists because China allows it to exist, right?
Yeah, it's you should understand that this is a message not only to Zone of A, but to any socialists that support anti-imperialist cause. I also support anti-imperialist cause. And I also don't want America to be sticking its nose everywhere. Not only America, any big fucking force. I live next to Russia. Russia basically fucking controls my economy of my country. If it wasn't for Russia, Belarus would go bankrupt in a month. We have an unsustainable economy that basically runs on Russian loans that they don't ask back. Basically, we exist because of oil money. When oil prices go down, Belarusian economy starts to shake a bit because we, our economy, we are dependent on Russia. We are basically a puppet. And I do realize that it's not really good, and I don't want that to to happen to any country. And I love the fact that people are really fast, like they really disavow America as soon as possible, but they don't disavow Putin. I remember there was a
Or
very
China.
interesting, or China. Of course, like it's not that I don't believe that China will become the next imperialist state after America falls apart. I don't think so, because China, in its foundation, like its basis, is not imperialist. It's socialist. Like all the basis of economy was all of those political and economic structures were created during Maoist times. And so, in their foundation, those guys are not suited for imperialism. Like, America was created by imperialism for imperialism. And so, I believe that this sort of, economic.
Well, I don't know if I'd say. Do you mean created in that literally like the first people who came here were like European colonists, or like created when you're referring to American Revolutionary War?
I would
Like, what's the
refer
flashpoint
to,
for creation? I guess.
I believe, American Revolution.
Oh, then I wouldn't really
Because,
say that we're like created by imperialism. I think we were created as more of like a national bourgeoisie type of thing. Because when we first started, we didn't really have the capacity to be imperialists. We only
yeah.
really started to be proper imperialists around the turn of the 20th century, I'd say. We did some crazy shit
Well,
in
I
like the
would disagree
Caribbean.
with you on this part, because what I mean by this is look at the way your political structure is how your politics are created, what system has been used. American founding fathers precisely used Roman republican system to be the basis for American democracy, and this system is made precisely to maintain slavery, A, and B, expand. Like the genocide of the native population, the expansion, the
Oh, yeah.
all of those
Right.
things. This could only be possible if you use political economic structures that are suited for that. This is why, like, you can attempt to do imperialism and do like economic expansion into other countries, as for example China does in Africa and all of that stuff, and they attempt to do that, but they will ultimately do it very slowly and not in a not very successful way. If you're a crazy like laissez-faire capitalist state, it's really easy to do that because you
Well, with
just
that in
let
mind, what's our
capitalists
analysis of
loose.
China's movements in like the South China Sea and shit like that?
Yeah, it's like all of those things sort of, you should realize that it says economic antagonism, and obviously it's really hard to do if you're at the basis you're using socialist economic systems. And so Russia, on the other hand, after basically after the Soviet Union evaporated and we had crazy privatization and all of that, Russia sort of got a lot out of like Russian out of the way Russian empire was structured. We have discussed with Paul, with Lexnovics, in just like private meetings when we talked. He mentioned a very interesting fact. He said that if you actually look at the way Russian economy functions, you would realize that it is actually imperialist in the most traditional sense of this word. Like, so all of this stuff, good example is how the Caucasus region is managed. It's like you literally have Russia literally has colonies, like good old colonies with puppet governments, but they claim to be part of the Russian Federation. And so all those federative regions that are included in the borders, and those people have Russian citizenships. They have some sort of autonomy, but they exist only because Moscow allows them to exist. You know? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Isn't that what Chechnya is?
Yeah, it is literally a fucking puppet government for for Putin. And not only that, Tatarstan is also the same thing. Republic of Komi and any other quasi-autonomous region is basically an economic puppet of the Russian main economic centers, the European part of Russia. It's like this is why in Siberia there was actually a secession movement. I think it's still active because those guys realized that they are basically a money bag for Moscow. And those regions have their own, identities. They have their own economies. They have their own everything. And they are basically economic puppets. And it is the fact is that just Russia covers it up and claims that it is all Russia and it's not really a different country. It's not it's not a colony. It's their own thing,
Right, right. That's interesting. I remember I read somewhere once that right after the fall of the Soviet Union, people were talking about creating like a European Russian state and a Siberian Russian state and something like that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, but again, Russia decided not to take this route because that would mean a lot of economic losses, and so they implemented a regional management system that is indistinguishable from Russian Empire. They have fucking governors, in there that are appointed by Moscow. Just imagine you have like an autonomous region and the governor is appointed by the center. It's like, for example, if you're fucking governor of your state, right? He was appointed from Washington. Directly, direct control over that, while still claiming to be a federation. It's similar to colonies, Oh,
Right,
Zona
right.
Faye keeps responding. Also, oh yes, you did express support for SD, blah blah blah. Also, as standard liberals, you place false equivalence between US and UK, imperialist, and what China and USSR did. No, it's different. This is what I'm saying. Economic expansion is still a thing in both cases, but the difference being that private industry can do it far faster and far easier, and it can go beyond what the USSR and China can do. Like, of course, USSR can command Poland to produce 80% of its scissors, right? And that still counts as some sort of, real economic control from the Moscow, but it's uncomparable to what happened in, for example, America with robber barons, for example, right? How they basically went rampant and did whatever they wanted and expanded the economy, expanded the exploitation, expanded the borders and whatnot. And also, he says, as leftist, I would imagine you would use Lenin's definition of imperialism. Alas, given you are liberal imperialists, you use imperialism as slander word without actual meaning. No, dude. Like, I've explained what I mean by imperialism. I mean economic expansion and extraction of surplus value from the different regions and from different countries for the sake of enrichment of the center. It's like, this is what imperialism is today in a post-colonial era, isn't it? Like, and to not to straying away from.
Yeah, never mind the fact that Eugene here fucking hates the pro-EU opposition movement in Belarus.
Yeah, I do hate the pro-EU opposition, and yes, they are literally imperialist shills. They are like, oh yes, we can use a populist message of you can travel wherever you want in Europe and have better jobs, and they will basically turn my country into a fucking shopping mall where not only our labor force will be basically exploited by the capitalists from Central Europe, but our whole existence will be like our whole economic existence will mean two things: A, create value for Europe, and B, consume the products of Europe. And that's it. That's the whole purpose of that thing. And the other thing that we have is Russia. Russia that is also very fucking spooky, and that uses this sort of third positionist vibe. At least it tries to. It's like, what's your knowledge of Dugin? Like, I should know a lot about Dugin. And
Me?
what do you know about him?
Not a lot.
For people who don't know, there is this guy who has a giant fucking beard. And he used to be one of the Nazbols, but he claims to be fourth positionist.
Oh, God.
Pan-Eurasian ideals, something like that. He wants Russia to be the nation that controls a Eurasian region. And it's like spooky as fuck. And it's scary also because...
you know what that reminds me of? It's the biggest meme ideology. This national anarchist movement. Have you heard of this?
National anarchist?
Yes.
I think so.
It's this extremely obscure thing. I'm sure it only has like 12 people who actually believe it unironically.
So what's
basically they're of the opinions that like they think that like states are spooks basically, but ethnicity is real. You know? So they basically want like to go back to like something resembling barbarian tribes.
Oh God.
And it is insane. It's hilarious. National Anarchist Movement, NAM is what they call themselves for short. And they have like a flag and everything. It's just hilarious.
Is it similar to what Varg wants to do? Like that with white nationalism?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that. It's I'm just eating something real quick. Hold on.
Okay. Like, for people who don't know, Varg is really interesting. The dude literally hates the alt-right. He hates capitalism and all of that. And what he wants to do is he wants to sit in the forest, have his little white autonomy, and breed white kids, and not bothered with fucking authoritarian fucks. He's spooky as hell, right? And he talks about white genocide and how Muslims are taken over. And what he thinks we should do, we should go back to paganism, and we should not participate in this system as much as possible. And he claims that we are his friends. We, the left, we are his friends. This is really, really fucking funny.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what I said earlier, where some people will become leftist because I guess it kind of becomes which values of the sort of right-wing political philosophy that you value more. Like if you kind of value the whole, being one with society aspect that right-wing philosophy proposes, if you value that more than a lot of like the racialist stuff, I think there's a greater chance that you'll become a leftist because you realize that the left just does that more in a more healthy way, I think.
Yeah.
But if you're more concerned about the racialist stuff, then obviously you'll just become like an even bigger fascist or whatever. And that ties into, I said earlier, like a lot of the people with those weird kind of ideologies don't really stay that way for too long. They'll either become something more traditional eventually.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right. I think we talked, we've talked about a lot.
Actually,
and
one more
I think,
thing. Yeah. One more thing. Like, do you think this counts as a third positionist ideology? Pol Pot in the Khmer Rouge.
Oh, Pol Pot. I don't know. Maybe, because Pol Pot literally fucking hijacked leftist ideology and did his own thing. Like, it's sort of, because it is a hijacking of the ideals and the ideologies. but it was like it was a Western
It
puppet.
definitely used a lot of like similar imagery and iconography to Marxist-Leninist movements. Yeah.
Yeah, it was similar to that, but like it was so spooky. Like from the inside, I remember Zizek was talking about it, and he mentioned that they were sort of like um, you, so crazy that if you were part of Khmer Rouge, it was referred to as the organization, and they were not allowed to discuss it, and they were like, you didn't know who your leader was. It was like it was really fucking fascist from within.
Yeah, it's the Khmer Rouge is interesting because you compare it to Nazism and the Holocaust. There have been entire textbooks written about
Uh-huh.
what led to the Holocaust and like all the historical things that led up to it and what it says about the European consciousness,
Hmm.
etc., etc. With the Cambodian genocide, it's really not. The Cambodian genocide is just so abrupt.
Doesn't make sense.
It is the complete absence of like any sense of logic
Yeah.
or reasoning.
Yeah,
Like that's
like
what that's what democratic Kampuchea is, in my
basically,
opinion.
because like in yeah, you can explain Holocaust through the like fucking centuries of anti-Semitism,
You can
and
see where the Holocaust comes from. Yeah,
yeah, you can see it. You can see it because uh, a good example why it wasn't artificial, like just fucking like couple of ideologues coming up with a fucking spook, and then they like, let's kill all the degenerates. Um, it was it was
it's a
visible the
culmination of
most.
like centuries of
Yeah,
anti-Semitism,
because it
and it
didn't
was a final,
finish. It
and the
didn't
last
finish when the
result.
Germans went away. Like Polish people have been assaulting Jewish populace, right? Like even after the war has finished. When the
Yeah,
Germans went home, there were still cases of people attacking the Jews, like in the cities and the villages, and you see that basically this ideology played to a particular part of the mentality of the people, of the
right.
hatred to the Jews. Like you can see it, but the case with with
Kampuchea.
Cambodia, yeah, is that it didn't make sense, and it sort of left the country devastated, and it came out of nowhere, and it perished into nothingness.
Yeah, it's just a complete insanity. Like nothing makes any
Mass
sense about
hysteria.
democratic
Yeah,
Kampuchea at all.
it's
And it's weird.
basically
Like their
mass hysteria.
ideology was basically just Cambodian nationalism,
Yeah.
just like extreme Cambodian nationalism. And they like took a few elements from Maoism and they like turned them up to 11, basically.
Yeah.
Like they literally deported everyone from the cities to be like peasants, basically.
Yeah.
It is insane.
They did so much fucking crazy shit. It's fucking insane. And this is sort of, what is the danger of hijacking of the leftist ideology, in my opinion. This is a
Right.
huge fucking danger that we should be worried about, we should be vigilant about. Because, like, claiming that something is anti-imperialist and left-wing is good enough to already attract a lot of attention of the people. Like, because everybody hates America, and if you start talking about let's fuck over America, you can easily get a bunch of people on board, you know? Not
Right.
only
Yeah.
that, and so basically I'm not saying, oh, we should have a pure leftist ideologies, and it's not pure enough in my taste. The purity of the
Yeah, we're not
pure.
asking for perfect leftist ideologies. We're just asking for leftist ideologies.
Yeah, make it, please make it socialist. Please, we should realize that there will be opportunistic people who will be trying to hijack left wing populism. And while we are playing the left populism game, while we are mobilizing people on the same things, we should realize that we should be like the only solution to that, I believe, is we should be as open about about our ideology as possible. Like fascists today have to lie about what they are about, right? They have to lie about like fucking peaceful ethnic cleansings, you know, and the democratic fucking eugenics programs. They have to lie about those things because what they are hiding sinister stuff while occasionally hiding behind our fucking propaganda. We, on the other hand,
definitely.
have to be as open about that as about our tasks and our ideals, as open about them as possible. Like taking, for example, a couple of pages out of Macno's fucking book, you know, and doing a lot of platformism, like reaching the people and explaining them what we really want to do. Like obviously there is always a part of what we are doing that is really like theoretical and that is really academic, you know. But the final goal of all this like high-end academic bullshit is explaining to the people what we are doing and what are our ideas, so that people will realize our tasks, that they are realistic and they are set in stone. It's like not set in stone, meaning that it's impossible for a genuine leftist revolution, right, to all of a sudden start fucking killing all the educated people and people who wear glasses. Like genuine revolution doesn't do
Fuck
that.
people with glasses, to be honest.
Well, fuck them, obviously, but like that's the point. If it was a genuine revolution in Cambodia, it wouldn't be that insane, because you have the mobilized working class fucking reshaping the society for the dominance of the working class, you know?
Hmm.
And so it's impossible for it to go like fucking crazy, insane, genocidal capitalist fucking third positionist.
I think to sort of my concluding remarks, if you will, there's a
Mm-hmm.
great quote from Malcolm X where he was talking about liberals, and he said basically you have the wolf and you have the fox, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
the wolf is terrible. Like you look at the wolf and everybody knows that it wants to hurt you. But if you see a fox, the fox is sneaky. The fox is like smiling, and like the fox makes you think that it's your friend. And he said that the fox gets the chicken a lot.
Yeah,
So you can sort of see the parallels that I'm drawing there.
I can see it. And I
Yeah.
think it's pretty much explains perfectly what is the main danger of the third positionism. It claims to be a friend, but like deep inside it isn't. And those things, we should realize those things as soon as possible before it is too late.
Not even just third positionism. Like, I guess you could just make that argument about fascism in general, really.
Yeah.
Like
Everything that attempts to
fascism,
look
third
left wing.
positionism, and just like opportunist elements within
Yeah.
leftist movements. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a great quote to finish up on. Let's thank you very much for appearing on Bolshevik Bistro.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you, chat. Thank you, everybody who has been watching. Thank you for everybody who's watching it in recording. You can tune in every Thursday. Don't forget to like this video or this audio and subscribe to whatever social media you're listening it on our YouTube, on our SoundCloud, on our iTunes. Consider leaving a comment. Give us a fucking review on iTunes also. That will help us climb up the charts in news and politics. And don't forget that the top of the fucking news and politics segment, in SoundCloud at least, are usually BBC, some fucking...
British Broadcasting Channel, not Big Black Cock.
excuse me?
BBC British Broadcasting Channel, not Big Black Cock.
Yeah, the British Broadcasting Channel. And the only, like, alternative, quote unquote, alternative media thing that is always in the top charts is literally fucking Louder with Crowder. And so let's take the fucking louder with Crowder down, and let's get fucking Eastern Marshlands as high as possible on that fucking chart. So go ahead, fucking follow us on SoundCloud and rate us and like us and listen to us. Send this fucking to your buddies that want to get into leftist politics. Let's get the fucking party started. On this note, thank you very much to everyone, and see you on Monday or Sunday on Radio Silence podcast. See you, people. Bye-bye.
Wait.